Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. New and improved. This is the first time I've used these gray covers on these gray boxes. First time I've used these squared off receptacles on these gray boxes. Turns out there's a little problem. These receptacles have to have a shim behind the tabs on them. Push the receptacle away from the box slightly. I'm going to be removing these screws. So I'm going to have to do a little trial and error on this mount here to figure out what's going to space this out far enough. To work. Putting on 4 washers is my first attempt. Could be a little too thick, could be a little too shallow. We'll see. There. Well, that's fairly solid. I was having a problem in that this receptacle was being pulled too far into the box. so that these screws couldn't engage. And it was making it difficult to get this thing to tighten up. Now it might be just a little too far with 4 washers, although it seems to be fairly snug at the bottom, a little loose at the top. Maybe I want to go with just 3. Let's go with 3 since we're experimenting on this one, so I don't have to do any more experimenting on the rest of them. I'll spend a little extra time fiddling with this one. For one thing, it's right here, easy to work with. And it's just a single receptacle. Learn by doing. I did a lot of these with Yankee screwdrivers, which at the time were an amazing piece of equipment, made life a lot easier. And still relatively current, even though they were made back in the 30s and before that. You can still buy them new. Might still be able to today. Although, I imagine, what with the advent of battery-operated tools, if you can afford the battery-operated tools, you're probably going with them. There. There. This nylon cover, it's nice because the plastic one's cracked. If I did that with a plastic one, it would split right there. It's up snug against that, snug, not quite snug against that. It's still a little, let's see. Now we're fitting good. Yep, 3 washers is just about right. Over on this one, I got the same thing is going to happen because these screws are down below the surface of this. This boss on the cover is slightly below the lip. Now in a standard junction box, the junction box would fit inside this lip. But on these, it's exactly the same width, so it rides above it. This edge actually sits on top of it. So I need to have this slightly up. This boss is below that edge about 1/8 of an inch, so I got to make up that difference with washers. Just went to Menards and I bought some number 6 zinc plated flat washers. Looks like 3 of them are just about right. Now in the old days, these are the tabs off the end of this outlet. We always clipped them off because we didn't use them inside a junction box. There was a time that you could mount this stuff just against the wall. You cut a hole in the wall and Just run screws through those tabs into whatever the wall material was and lock this in place. It didn't screw into the junction box. And so they left those little tabs on there. Not exactly sure why, whether it's something retrofitting for old work or what, but in any case, we always clipped them off. And we didn't toss them. We kept them handy. And these were quite often washers that you used to shim up outlets if you had to bring it out from the wall. Because people would mount outlet boxes back in the 20s. Had these little metal boxes that they mounted into the plaster. Then they'd plaster over the front edge, so the front edge would be covered, and that put the box slightly below the surface, and the screws would not reach. So if you tried tightening it up, you'd likely break something. So we put those little washers underneath that, underneath the outlet going into the junction box, or the switch going into the junction box, so that it would pull it out and give it something so that you could tighten it up, because you wanted to have that outlet so you didn't push on the outlet. And then on the old style outlets, I'll use this as an example. This is a bell box. Been around sitting in a junk box for a long time. It's got a bunch of crap built up in it. Looks like I've pulled this out of someplace. It's probably why it's got junk in it. Anyways, bell boxes, those bosses are flush with the outside edge. And this cover actually sits down into the box, just like that one does. On the plastic boxes, this outer edge of the junction box actually rides against the outer edge of the cover plate and makes it so that it has to suck down in there. Sit like that. But because this is down below the surface, and on the old outlets they only had the one screw in the center, when you tighten it up, it would pull that down and break it right across the center. So that's why we would shim up underneath them, and we never use these. This is just something new that I've started doing in this room. Never fiddled with PVC junction boxes. So I'm learning something new, and I hope you are too. It's time for supper, so I gotta go in and start making supper. If you have any suggestions for new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.
This video is not to be viewed by anyone under the age of 13 in the U.S. or 16 in the European Union without the express written permission of the parents or the legal guardians of the underage person. Such written permission must be on file at the local government entity in charge of enforcing the rules and regulations established by the FTC. Anyone violating these terms is admitting by default that they hold harmless the owners and operators of this channel. Any and all questions should be addressed to your local branch of the FTC.